Okay, welcome to lesson 15 of numbers and operations. Properties of whole numbers. Now, these lessons are ones that math teachers usually have to cut because they spend a lot of time with other things. So, this is an important lesson and it's going to be a little long, this video. There are a lot of properties of numbers, and I'm going to deal with some of them, but you will see several properties of numbers videos, and we're going to try to deal with it. So make sure you have a textbook or some kind of worksheet when you watch this video, because this is going to be a little involved and a lot of things to remember. Okay, so here are objective. Okay, there are several properties of numbers that are really easy, but it's just a lot to remember. So you have your commutative property, and commute means to go back and forth. So if the numbers switch order for addition and multiplication, it's the same thing. So let's take any number in here. So 3 plus 2 equals 2 plus 3. That's called the commutative. If you change the numbers around, it's the same thing. That's for addition. For multiplication, same thing. 3 times 2. Whenever you see two letters next to each other, the order is multiplication. Is equal to 2 times 3. The same thing. All the numbers did was switch. And you can only do these with addition and multiplication. You cannot do these with subtraction or division, and that's why you won't see that. Associative. Associate is who you're grouped with. So here in the first one, you see A plus B, and C is on the outside. And then A is on the outside, and B and C is on the inside. Or B and then C plus A are grouped together. So your association is who you're grouped with. And there's an associative property for multiplication that you can read through. The identity property of addition gives you the same number out. So any number, A, let's take a number, 5, plus 0 equals 5. 5 as a addend is equal to 5 as a sum or a total. So 5 plus 0 equals 5. That's the identity property of addition. There's an identity property of multiplication, where 5 times 1 equals 5. Any number multiplied by 1 will give you the same number out. And of course, you can switch the numbers around. The inverse property of addition. Invert, adding the opposite number. A plus negative A, or negative A plus A. So let's take a number. 3 plus negative 3 gives you a 0 pair. Negative 3 plus 3. I switched the numbers around from the first example. It gives you 0. So the inverse property of addition is the same as the 0 pair. The 0 property of multiplication, any number multiplied by 0 is 0. Now, to distribute, this is a property that comes up in the first or second week of 9th grade math or 8th grade math. To distribute, the A has to multiply to the B and to the C, because when a number or a letter is outside of a parentheses and there's no sign in between it, it's understood to be multiplied. And it is the same whether the number on the outside is in the front or in the back. You still have to multiply and multiply. And then you have a distributive property of multiplication over subtraction. So again, multiply the A to the B and the A to the C, whether it's in the front or the back. Okay, so now we're going to identify which property is used to solve the problem. Okay, so what's going on here? The numbers have switched. The 6 and the 2 have switched place. So this is the commutative property. Commutative property of addition. Next slide. Example 2. Okay, here we go. 6 times negative 2 Negative equals negative 2 times 6. What do we have? This is the commutative property again, but of multiplication. Okay, example 3. Which property is used here? The 6 and the 2 and the 3. Now we have the -6 on the outside and the 2 and the 3 are together. So this looks like a grouping change to me. The 2 got put with the 3 and the 6 is now on the outside. So this will be associative property of addition. Okay, 6 and 2 together, 3 is on the outside. 6 is on the outside and the 2 and the 3 are together. So this looks like the associative property of multiplication. Example 5. This is an identity property. You got the same number going in and coming out. So this is the identity property of addition, because the order is addition. These are your operators. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide are operators. Okay. A number is next to a parenthesis, so we know to multiply, but we got the same number going in and the same number coming out. This is an identity property of multiplication. The order of operation is multiplication. 3 plus -3. This is called a zero pair, or the vocabulary gave us additive inverse. Inverse just means the opposite. So we're adding the opposite, a number and its opposite. And how do we know it's the opposite? Because it gives us 0. Example 8. Which property is used to solve the problem? 0 times -3 equals 0, or -3 times 0 equals 0. So let's look at what we have. The 0 and the 3 switch places. And we can get commutative but there's also another property used. Any number times 0 is 0. So this is the 0 property of multiplication. So you can pick whichever property you want. There are actually 2 that apply. The commutative property of multiplication or the 0 property of multiplication. Okay, which property is used to solve this problem? Let's look at what happened. The 3 is multiplying to the 4, and then 3 is multiplying to the 5. So this looks like the distributive property over addition. And distribute means to pass out to everything. So if you're hanging out with your friends and you have something and you pass something out to all of it, it's called distributing. Now, our final example, example 10. Again, the 3 is on the outside. There's no sign in between the 3 and the parentheses. There's no sign. So that means multiply, just like in the previous problem. So the 3 multiplies to the 4, the -4, and the -3 multiplies to the -5. Oh, I left the sign. It looks kind of weird, but what I did was I left this sign here. And I just put the 5 in parentheses. So this is distributive over multiplication, over subtraction. This is distributive property, which is multiplication over subtraction. And this ends our examples, and now there are some problems for you to solve and identify. Okay, which property is used to solve the problem? This is a grouping problem, so that's associative. You get the same number going in and the same number coming out, so this is an identity problem. Eight, 3, 1. 8, 3, 1. This is another grouping problem, so this is an associative problem. Associative. One plus 9, 9 plus 1. This is a commutative. The numbers go back and forth. Commutative of addition. Okay, now when you have parentheses and then you put another parentheses next to it, when we type it out, we use brackets. That's just a second set of parentheses. And there's a third set, which we'll see later. But we can see the 2 now multiplies to the 8, and then the 2 goes and multiplies to the 7. So this is distributive property over subtraction. Distributive. Okay, we see distribution again. It's a distributive over addition. And all we're doing in this video is just identifying properties. This is the 0 property of multiplication, or the identity property of multiplication. Okay, this is an identity property of addition. Negative 8 plus 8. This is the additive inverse, or a 0 pair. And finally, for our last problem, 2 times 8, 8 times negative 2. This will be commutative. The numbers switch around, which means they commuted. Property of multiplication. Okay, this is again one of those lessons where teachers may not have time to go over all of these properties, but you will definitely see distribution. Teachers may mention commutative and associative properties. A lot of kids really sometimes forget or don't know what that means just because they didn't have enough practice with it. So I would urge you to take some time and practice identifying these with other worksheets, or maybe Khan Academy or a used textbook, teacher's edition, so that you can familiarize yourself with identifying these properties, because they come up over and over and over again in algebra. So thank you very much for listening to me prattle on about that. I'll catch you on the next video.